The Italian, or The Confessional of the Black Penitents by Anne Radcliffe. Read by Georgina Sutton for Naxos Audiobooks. He, wrapped in clouds of mystery and silence, broods o'er his passions, bodies them in deeds, and sends them forth on wings of fate to others, like the invisible will that guides us, unheard, unknown, unsearchable. About the year 1764, some English travellers in Italy, during one of their excursions in the environs of Naples, happened to stop before the portico of the Santa Maria del Pianto, a church belonging to a very ancient convent of the Order of the Black Penitents. The magnificence of this portico, though impaired by time, excited so much admiration that the travellers were curious to survey the structure to which it belonged, and with this intention they ascended the marble steps that led to it. Within the shade of the portico, a person with folded arms and eyes directed towards the ground was pacing behind the pillars the whole extent of the pavement, and was apparently so engaged by his own thoughts as not to observe that strangers were approaching. He turned, however, suddenly, as if startled by the sound of steps, and then, without further pausing, glided to a door that opened into the church and disappeared. There was something too extraordinary in the figure of this man, and too singular in his conduct, to pass unnoticed by the visitors. He was of a tall, thin figure, bending forward from the shoulders, of a sallow complexion and harsh features, and had an eye which, as it looked up from the cloak that muffled the lower part of his countenance, seemed expressive of uncommon ferocity. The travellers, on entering the church, looked round for the stranger who had passed thither before them, but he was nowhere to be seen, and through all the shade of the long aisles, only one other person appeared. This was a friar of the adjoining convent, who sometimes pointed out to strangers the objects in the church which were most worthy of attention, and who now, with this design, approached the party that had just entered. The interior of this edifice had nothing of the showy ornament and general splendour which distinguish the churches of Italy, and particularly those of Naples, but it exhibited a simplicity and grandeur of design considerably more interesting to persons of taste, and a solemnity of light and shade much more suitable to promote the sublime elevation of devotion. When the party had viewed the different shrines, and whatever had been judged worthy of observation, and were returning through an obscure aisle towards the portico, they perceived the person who had appeared upon the steps passing towards a confessional on the left, and as he entered it, one of the party pointed him out to the friar and inquired who he was. The friar, turning to look after him, did not immediately reply, but on the question being repeated, he inclined his head, as in a kind of obeisance, and calmly replied, "He is an assassin."